morning, everybody. It's a beautiful morning here in quarantined La La Land. We had a great, by the way, little interruption of my thought. This is Kalashnikov by Spirit Fingers that you're hearing in the background. I hope the content management system doesn't take it out of the mix. But if it does, then I'll just have to take this down, and this will be a one-time listen for all the live viewers out there. We had a really great live stream last night. Thank you, Robert, for liking the stream. We should be able to see your chats if anybody wants to say anything here in one of the chat windows. Now, oh yeah, so, well, the chat's an interesting thing. On my fan page, we'll be able to see the chats, but not in my, on my personal page. So go to my fan page and watch from there, which is facebook.com/Greg Spero. I believe I started it from my personal page too. Maybe I'll take that down. Yeah, those are you, those few people who are watching on my personal page, go to the fan page. I'm gonna remove the personal page now, so that we don't, well, no, there are more people going on the personal. Well, if you want to participate in the chat, go to gregspero.com/ oh, I still have this wrong header here. gregspero.com/ I'm sorry, facebook.com/Greg Spero. 1 second. Take that out. Put back the mornings with Greg. There we go. Okay, now back to our normal screen. So for those of you who weren't there last night, we had a very special live stream where we were raising money for Tiny Records so that we could hire a part-time person for 1 month to work on the release of tons of music that we have backlogged, including my personal back catalog, but also some really great artists that we've worked with over the past couple of years to record for Tiny Records. It's going to be a fun journey, and you're going to get some great music now because we were successful in that live stream, so thank you so much to everybody who participated in that. It's kind of hard to talk over this crazy music. There's also, we have a very special guest here. His name is Max Garrel. For those of you who are fans of Spirit Fingers, he is the bassist in Spirit Fingers, and you hear him all over these recordings, including this one that we're listening to right now, Kalashnikov, playing a bunch of crazy lines and shit. So you will have the chance to ask him questions if you'd like. In fact, I'm going to bring him on. Let's see. I go to the guest screen here, and then just need to change the screen share to be max. There he is. Then you need to unmute him. All right, Max, can you say something for us?
Hello.
Yeah, there he is.
Ah.
Max Garrel, everybody. Oh.
Yeah.
See,
good morning, everybody.
Good. Good morning. Good morning. Obviously, I'm doing this all myself, so there are a couple titles on there that are from earlier things. So I'm gonna have to just remove the crowdfunding campaign. So for those of you who weren't there yesterday for this crowdfunding campaign, we it was on ulule.com. And I played for, it was, 1 second, I'm going to turn off this music because I cannot possibly talk with this. Max can't hear it, but everybody else can. And it's Kalashnikov with Dario soloing, like just ripping it in the background. And my brain doesn't work when that is on.
There's definitely better talking music.
Yeah, there's definitely better talking music than that. So yeah, at this, and Max, I don't know, Max, did you see any of that live stream last night? I don't think I had told you about it.
I saw just a second. I was
Okay.
working on some recordings, but I caught a little bit of it.
Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, and actually Kevin Gilman is here. He just commented, says congratulations, great concert. He was there. He was one of the contributors. So we had tiers of contributions people could make, and if you contributed $100 or more, you got my full Greg Spero back catalog, which is actually 11 records. I didn't realize I'd recorded that many records.
Yeah, I did see. I did see. What was it? The post that you made about your back catalog and just doing a hard drive dump per se.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so I've been seeking out and aggregating all those records that I had done, and finally put it all together. So I was able to offer it as a prize to people who were contributors, and Kevin was one of the contributors for that. Kevin, I'll send you that today. I'm gonna get on and get out all those today. Then there was also the back catalog of Tiny Room, which I think a couple people got because you could pick between the two, and that had stuff from that I had recorded with a bunch of artists like Cheat Codes and Transviolet and some pop artists, but then also some Butcher Brown acoustic stuff and a recording we did with Mono Neon and Sput Seawright and Rustlin Sirota.
That's an interesting trio.
Yeah, it was. I mean, with me, it was me and Rustlin on two different keyboards, and then Sput,
Okay,
Sput
okay.
and Mono.
Well, if we know we know it was funky. I don't need to hear it to know that.
Ronald Brunner Jr. was on some of it too. He came in when it was a 2-day recording session, and then the second day Sput got stopped at the airport and for whatever reason couldn't make it into LA. Was actually held at the airport over for 24 hours, which was really weird.
Whoa.
But so Ronald came in and played for the first half of the second day of the recording session. So it's a bunch of stuff with Ron too. Yeah, that's a fun recording. But the recording that we're focusing on right now is the Spirit Fingers recording, which everybody heard just a moment ago. Kalashnikov is one of the unreleased tracks, but we just released our first single, our first instrumental single. The first one before that was with Judy Jackson, who I'm going to have on here on another day. But the instrumental Nails is the first one that we released that is just the Spirit Fingers quartet as it has been, which has been a really hard, it's one of the more challenging ones. It's like yeah, so that I won't go ahead and try to play the whole thing because I'm not warmed up even close this morning.
Yeah, I actually I had a student yesterday, somebody that I was teaching, and it wasn't actually I had one guy a couple of weeks ago that he got in touch with me specifically because he wanted to work on like Spirit Fingers lines.
Nice.
and it was crazy because he was on a 4-string too, so it's
oh shit.
So it's a limited range for some of those lines,
Yeah.
And he's like 16, but he like had all this stuff. It was crazy. Like he really had these lines. So that was super cool to see, and
yeah, man.
Also just really mind-blowing because those lines are really hard.
There's some kids who are nailing this stuff. It's scary. Yeah. I'm like, I have to write harder lines now and then learn to play them so that I can stay on top of the game. Like there's a girl in London named Lucia who is she's learned like all of the piano lines, and she's working on Find. She can play it without the ostinato, but I haven't heard anybody on piano get it with the ostinato, like the whole thing. Like that whole one with being able to play the B in there.
Yeah, and I see Lucia on Instagram all the time. I feel like that's one of the most diehard Spirit Fingers fan sects is that clique in London.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, and they're sharing it. That's one of the things that I really look forward to is getting back to London.
Same.
When all of this coronavirus craziness is dies down a little bit.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. How have you been managing with the quarantining?
I've been cool. At this point, I mean, every now and then I'll have a moment where I get a little, just like, okay, this is getting a little old. But at the same time, this is just very much the new norm for right now, And I'm a big believer in just there's only so much that you can do about certain situations.
Yeah.
And in this one, there's absolutely nothing that I can, I'm not, I would love to say that I'm sitting here at the house and, I've been doing developmental research on a vaccine or a treatment or something, but that's not the case. I've just been doing scales with the bow on upright and learning Coltrane solos in the election, so just essentially business as usual for quarantine mode, just practicing, teaching, recording, all things of that nature. That's getting ready to release this single that I've got with Mike and with Paul Cornish, the pianist.
That's cool. I want to hear more about that. I want to give a quick shout out to Vince Lawrence, who's watching right now. One of my friends from Chicago, who's a really great artist and music producer. He does a lot of corporate stuff, and I've done some fun work with him. But actually, that's one of the people that I'd like to. Oh, hey, Mike just texted me. He just woke up. So I think we'll be able to get Mike on here. That's so funny.
Had a feeling.
But Vince. Actually, Vince is somebody. Vince, if you're still watching, I would love to have you on at some point to hear the perspective from the producer and more corporate side. Maybe talking about how artists can get involved in that side, because you're probably still going ham with all your business from Chicago. I'm texting Mike to go on the stream. That's one of the things that recording, if you can record in your home and you can produce, then you've got a good amount of work still. That's one of the industries that has not been taken away, because all the content curation industries are still thriving.
Right.
Unless you need to be on site, like major movies and things.
Right. Well, my girlfriend is a makeup artist, and she does a lot of work on, anything that makeup artists are needed for, but she does a lot of music videos, movies, TV. Mm-hmm. So she's in a way had a little bit, I don't want to say a rougher go of it, but pretty much everything has been canceled for her, just because they're not doing anything. And I think that's one thing that we're in the same boat. Artists in general have it particularly bad, but I do think that just the entertainment industry on the whole, especially people that work shows, I've been watching, Conan has been doing a lot of Zoom interviews, so he's sort of maintained his schedule, as it were. Yeah. And the other day he did one where he Zoom bombed a Zoom happy hour quarantine of his I think mid-20s something employees.
That's funny.
Because they're all none of them are working too.
Yeah. That's pretty funny. I would love to see that. Actually, what I have not been doing is watching any TV. So I'm not hip to what any of the TV shows have transitioned into, but it's got to be a very interesting landscape to see them all basically going into their home to produce these that which would normally be a gigantic production.
Yeah, absolutely. And some shows have had a smoother transition than others. I mean, and me, I'm a total sports dude. So pretty much the only and I don't really watch much TV in general. Mm-hmm. I just tend to watch the sports shows that I find entertaining. There's no sports on, so yeah, my TV is not on that much. But one of my favorites, the Inside the NBA crew with Shaq and Charles Barkley, they've managed to keep it going over Zoom with Rich Eisen and Kenny the Jet Smith. They've kept it going, and that team is a tour de force though. I think they've been doing that program for 10 years, and they've won 7 or 8 Emmys.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm really glad they've found a way to keep it going, because as a sports fan, that to me is one of the most entertaining ways to pass the time. because I mean, you can practice 10 or 12 hours a day, but that's difficult to do every day.
Yeah.
So
Well, I've been practicing less, actually. Like lately, I've taken this period because I know I'm not going to be touring, so I don't really have to be warmed up for it. I've taken this opportunity to dive in on other projects that I'd been putting off, like this tech project. Like I'm working on an application that is going to help artists monetize their content and careers in situations like this. And I'm trying to get it out as quickly as possible. I've been talking to development teams over the past days. I've been working basically 10-hour days on this application, and then giving myself 1 hour to practice at night to just get through exercises and keep my sanity.
yeah, I hear that. Yeah, I feel like realistically, I could and should probably cut out a little bit of time to devote to some other things, but I find that, for me, it's just such like, yeah, I have like a hard time functioning if I don't play throughout a day. But this has been good in a way because it has given me a little bit more of an awareness of taking breaks for the sake of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not mental health, but just, breaks to give myself a little bit of space to just, clear my head from all the rigors of really intense practicing. Because, especially with the upright too, you can't practice one and expect it to hit the other between electric and upright basses. If you're not doing something on both, then they do not cross fertilize. So, that's
interesting.
Yeah, the only similarities with the strings are the same name. Everything else is a completely different animal. But I also just think it's kind of funny. I was talking to Cameron the other day, and because he had some November dates that haven't been canceled yet. Knock wood. Hopefully, we're able to make those safely. But we were talking about it, and Mike has a situation now where he can practice, and I don't remember the last time. We go back years. I don't remember a time that I've known Mike where he's had a place he can consistently practice, but now he does, which is crazy to think about. It's crazy because he hasn't been practicing this whole time. So now that he has, it could get kind of crazy. We were talking about it, I'm just practicing, just man, this is going to be so fun to come out of this, and everybody's just going to be so much more killing.
Right. Yeah, that will be a cool moment. I don't know. I don't feel like November. I mean, I'm even, we have the, they haven't canceled our concert in, where is it? Ukraine? At the Kolo Jazz Festival. They haven't officially canceled it, but I can't imagine it's going to happen.
And even if they maintained it, I think the question at that point becomes, do we collectively agree that it is a good idea to go to Ukraine?
Yeah, right.
And not because of Ukraine, but
because of flying.
Because of flying, yeah.
Yeah, it's not the thing to do right now.
No, unfortunately not. But I don't know. It's one of those things to where I always feel I kind of am constantly going back and forth between this is gonna be I keep seeing these articles. This is actually kind of a pet peeve of mine. I've kind of had to withdraw a little bit from social media, or at least just scrolling. I keep seeing these articles talking about how the music industry is screwed, and artists and musicians are screwed, and everything is terrible. And generally speaking, I'm not disagreeing with that, because it's a tough time for artists in general. But at the same time, this is not the rest of time. We're not going to be and I know it feels like it now because we've been here for a couple months, and there's kind of an end in sight. But But at the same time, like I keep thinking that like we got to look at this the same way as the Spanish flu, but a little bit better because our awareness of these things collectively as a society is so much more developed
Well, yeah,
than it
not
was at
only
the
that,
time.
we have technology to get through it together. Whereas with the Spanish
Right.
flu, it's like to get the information on what people could do collectively. I mean, you basically, like, at that point in time, did you have radio at that point in time? I don't even know, actually. It was 1918.
I'm not. Good question. I'm
I
not
feel
sure
like
if
you
you.
had radio. I feel like you had very early stages of radio,
True.
but that's basically all. And then
Yeah.
the newspaper.
But at the
Like,
same time, yeah, totally. And at the end of the day, a lot of our, as jazz fanatics, a lot of our favorite artists and inspirations lived through and survived that time.
hmm
And there aren't a whole lot of financial success stories in early jazz music to point to, but at the same time, they still survived and left us with this legacy. So I think that it is daunting, and we're all trying to figure out how how to get from point A to point B, A being here, B being, you know, working in financial stability as
hmm
artists. And for some people are in better positions than others for any number of reasons. But my whole thing is I just think that like we need to stop treating this like it's a death sentence for artists all over the world. Like it's not good,
hmm
but it's also not good for anybody. Like very few people are really. I mean, there are a handful of Jeff Bezoses who are really doing well right now,
hmm
but at the same time, I think like we can embrace that it's not ideal, but this is not the end of live music as we know it or anything like that.
No,
Like,
well, it's. I was talking to Makai about this too. It's a ebb and flow, right?
right.
This is a big ebb, but like throughout the entire history of humanity, the arts have not gone away.
Yep.
And by the way, throughout the entire history of humanity, artists have never been paid that much.
Yeah.
You know, and we're actually being paid more now than at any point in history ever, because for the most part we were playing guitar from town to town, just like begging for food, or we were working for a church. That's the music that got recorded, like on
Right.
paper.
Hmm.
um, playing for a church and subject to the whims of whatever the royalty was. Um, this is the only point in history where we actually have an abundance of. Some artists have a lot of money. It's like the elite are the artists that are doing really well, along with like the other industries that are doing well. And I'm not saying it's good compared to the other industries by any means, because you know like you look at the position, the if you look at them as pyramids, and I just take my own personal experience where I was in the position of playing, doing the sound design and keyboards for Halsey, and how many positions there are at that level in the music industry. If you take that and put it to its pyramid next to it, which is like surgeons, if you were
Hmm.
like the one of like 50 surgeons in the world with the best job in the world, like you would be making a lot more money,
There is that.
but at the same time artists are making more money now than at any point in history previously. So there's it's perspective and appreciation, and then like rolling with the ebbs and flows like this, getting through it and moving into the next phase in a better way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So
And sorry, go ahead.
I have a question. I would not to abruptly change the subject, but I'm going to. So you have this album coming out, and would you wanna preview a little bit of that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just a single, but I feel really, really strongly about it. I feel really, really pleased about it.
Cool. This is Saturday morning. Nobody's up. I feel like it's safe to let this out for a few people. Um, why don't we? How do I get the link to that single? Do you have it?
Yeah, I can send it to. Do I? Actually, I may or I may not actually.
Well, while you're looking for that, I'm going to go into the Spirit Fingers catalog and I'm going to play something from this. Ooh, why don't we... Let's do Earthbound. See if... I don't think I've played this for anybody yet. So the people who are watching now, you can hear Earthbound because that has Max's solo on it. And then we'll pull up Max's track real quick here.
If I email it to you, would that work?
Yep, that works.
I just sent it to you.
Cool. Let's let this play out at least through your solo.
I'm all for that.
This is Earthbound off the upcoming Spirit Fingers record, for those of you who are curious. By the way, Max, if you want to actually hear it, you can tune into the live stream itself on a phone or something. Don't do it on your computer because then it'll feed back through. Actually, or maybe it won't.
Got it right here.
By the way, Max, if you want to actually hear it. Oh, turn it down though.
Yeah.
I can hear it. Good use of space there. We don't need to listen to the whole piano solo. we got through Max's solo, and we want to leave a little bit of anticipation for when people actually get the record. So that's Earthbound. Now we're gonna listen to a little bit of Max's upcoming record. His upcoming single, Rochelle's Sparrows, named after yours truly.
Okay.
I don't know who Rochelle is, but I know who.
So actually, it's not a who, but a what. So when I was living in New York before I moved to LA, I was living in a little suburb called New Rochelle,
Mm-hmm.
and I was living in my aunt and uncle's sunroom, and so it faced east. So every morning, it was like just an inferno in that room.
Mm-hmm.
Because like as the sun's coming up, all the windows is just getting all that sun.
Mm-hmm.
And so you know how it is in New York. Nobody's going to bed early. Nobody's waking up early,
Mm-hmm.
except for me, because every morning it was like the sun was rising next to my bed. And so there was also a bird's nest that was up in the corner of the house right above my bed as well. And so every morning, always earlier than I was trying to get up, it's like just so much sun and these birds that wouldn't shut up. So like every day for like a month, this is how I'm being woken up. And eventually a tune came out of it.
Nice. I gave you a little background music for your story.
Thank you.
So yeah, let's check this out. Rochelle's Sparrows. What's the name of the pianist on this?
Paul Cornish.
Paul Cornish. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Paul.
Oh yeah, no, he gets pretty serious on this too. And this is like for like my own trio, I really love this formation. Because we're all Texans, so we all kind of have a similar vibe.
Y'all were what?
We're all Texans, so we all kind of have similar influences in our ears.
Oh yeah.
When we're approaching stuff like this.
That's fair.
Yeah, Paul, he really gets into it in this solo. It gets kind of crazy. He just has such a good understanding of tension and release. It's really incredible.
Yeah, he's great. Woo!
this goes on for like another good 5 minutes, so we don't have to go through the whole thing. But yeah, Paul, Paul, yeah, and it's funny too because we recorded that. He had just got back from Houston. He was back. I don't know if he was back for work, if he was visiting family or something, but he went back to Houston for a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
And when we made this session, I didn't know that he was out of town like hours before the session. So like he landed at LAX and went straight to tiny room. Like he showed up with a suitcase. So I was like, Paul, what?
Nice.
Going somewhere? What's with the suitcase? He's just like, oh no, I just got back.
Man, I remember doing that. I would go to, when I was his age. How old is he?
He just turned 23, I believe.
Jesus Christ.
Right.
So Paul, when I was 23, that's exactly what I was doing. I was going to New York, and I would bring my suitcase to these sessions and whatever hang was going on, and just show up with all of my luggage and just be all in. And then I would go for like a couple days at a time, but I'd often just take my luggage with me everywhere because I didn't know where I was going to stay, and I'd end up just crashing with somebody. Mm-hmm. Like usually like run into some friend or something and be like, hey, I don't have anywhere to stay tonight. Mm-hmm. Can I
the couch surf as long as you can?
Yeah. And I did that for a lot of my early 20s in New York, so I know that vibe. That's fun. By the way, so we're gonna end the episode earlier than 9 today, but I want to give a couple like future announcements. One that Max might be interested in, because I'm doing a bass-centric episode later this week.
Nice. And
we have some pretty cool guests on it. It's co-hosted by Cheryl from what is the? I always it's Cheryl Semester Masterson. I'm sure I butchered that name. I'm sorry, Cheryl. But she's the host of the Jazz Disturbance, and so we have aggregated some of my favorite bassists to come on this show, including Buster Williams and Michael League and Junius Paul is also going to be there, and Marlene Rosenberg. And then there's one other. Who did Cheryl? So let me see if it's included in this little text, because there's Omar something. Max, do you know? I feel like you would know this one. Wait for it. Omar Avital. That's it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Omer, I believe.
Sorry. Omer Avital.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the 5 of them are going to be on. I sent an email over to Ron Carter to see if he would join, but he hasn't gotten back to me, so we'll see.
Man, that you got Buster is pretty cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, Buster's one of the homies. He's SGI. So I've known him forever. I went to his house in New York. Outside of New York. It was I think he's somewhere in Jersey. But on one of my couch surfing trips to New York, I took my suitcase over to Buster's house and hung with him for the whole day, and we chanted and meditated and just discussed music and life. It was one of those experiences similar to the Herbie experiences. It's like you just learn so much from a cat like that, and I'm really excited to have him coming on the show. I think it's Tuesday that it's on, but
I'll definitely have to check that out.
But tomorrow is going to be the first day that I take off from Mornings with Greg. I think Sunday is an appropriate day, and we've been doing it. I think this is the 9th week. This is either the 9th or the 10th week that I have not missed a morning, and so tomorrow will be the first day that you don't get to see me early in the morning. But I'm going to start a new schedule, and see, I'm getting all teary-eyed. No, I'm just kidding. That was just a cough. I'm going to start a new schedule and probably do it 3 days a week, and maybe in the afternoons. I might still call it Mornings with Greg because it's ironic. It's my style. But yeah, and on that note, I think it's a good time to end. And one day we'll get Mike Mitchell on here. He woke up late this morning and then didn't have Zoom downloaded. And he's been trying to download it. We've been texting. He's been trying to download it for the last 20 minutes. Classic Mike. What are you gonna do? At least he made the flights. The majority of the last flights that we had.
The important parts.
Right? We were just having this discussion. Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Kevin says enjoy your day off, man. Thank you, Kevin. I will. Kevin is a diehard fan. Can't wait to send you the back catalog. I'm going to do that today. Max, I really appreciate you joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Do you have any final words for everybody before I let you go?
I got kind of a funny Ron Carter story. Little brief
sure.
one.
Go ahead.
Since you mentioned Ron.
Go ahead.
So you know, Ron's a pretty intense cat. You know, Ron's pretty intense. So with that in mind, we were at the Detroit Jazz Festival last September playing with Cameron, and I flew in on a red eye, and I can't sleep on planes worth my life, you know. So I get there, and I haven't slept all night. I'm cranky. We flew through a lightning storm, so I'm just awake while this is happening, you know. Yeah. And so I'm a little cranky. I'm kind of upset. I get to the hotel. I check in. They got like this incredible breakfast going at the hotel, and so I'm downstairs and I'm at the buffet line and I'm trying to put food on my plate, and I'm pretty cranky at this point. I'm real tired. I'm hungry. Haven't had any coffee yet. And this really tall, like I'm 6'3", but Ron makes me feel short. Yeah. So I'm in line trying to like get my chicken sausages. Like, and I feel this really tall dude next to me, and I'm like, who is this dude crowding me right now? But like, I'm trying to, like, you know, this is neither the time nor the place to to be uptight about somebody standing close to me. But like, eventually I'm so cranky that I turn and I'm ready to be like, what are you doing? And I turn and it's Ron Carter. And he's just standing there and he's looking. I guess he was waiting for the chicken sausages, and I think he could see on my face that I was ready to buck. But he was just looking at me, and I kind of froze. I was just like, I think I just went like, hey, Mr. Carter. and Ron, he just looked at me for a minute. He goes, and just kept walking.
Yep, that would
God.
I know that.
Just got stared down by like an 85-year-old man.
85-year-old legend of music.
Yeah, best note choice in a walking bass player ever.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah, man. His recordings in the Miles Quintet with the ones with Wayne and Tony. And Herbie, I listened to those at a point in high school. I had this 1 hour video of their concerts. I think it was in like Sweden and Germany or something like that. Maybe it was Switzerland.
Where they start with Agitation.
Yeah, that one. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I had a bootleg of that before Vince released those. Before it was officially released. This was when I was in high school. And I had this bootleg TV broadcast recording of it, just as an MP4 file. I listened to that every single night for like 6 months, because I at first I was like, I have no idea what they're doing or where they are anywhere, and so I was like, I need to get this. So every single night before I went to bed, I listened to the whole tape, and then eventually started to understand like what was going on, and then eventually fell so in love with it because it's like the best shit ever.
Yeah. Yeah, and Ron Carter gets a lot of credit on. I mean, he's a legend, of course, but I think in that group, he tends to be the most overlooked member because Wayne was writing all those tunes. Herbie was just this like wizard of harmony, and Tony was sort of the driver in terms of where things are going rhythmically. But the thing is, and I think this is like common to people aren't usually aware, and I'm biased, of course, in my opinion of this, but like how the bass influences how things are able to work, because with so many, I mean, with Miles and Wayne and Herbie and Tony, you've got four titans of music that can pull it in any direction at any time. People really overlook the impact that Ron had on that group, because so many of the things that they did, specifically in the rhythm section, but like so much of that would not have been possible without Ron.
He was the glue.
Like,
he was the glue tying it all together.
And you know he did an incredible job at it because nobody noticed that it was him. And yeah, and honestly, the Files de Kilimanjaro album, that Miles Quintet album, that to me is really the one that is Ron's standout, specifically Mademoiselle Mabry. Like that track is just, that's a masterclass in playing
out
bass.
Of the archives. I haven't listened to that in a long time.
Oh, it's like a masterclass in very intentional bass note choice and placement. You know, it doesn't get any more high level than that, the way he's choosing to execute some of his ideas.
Yeah, man. Well, you know, you draw from that school of thought, and I notice it in Spirit Fingers, because, you know, Mike and I can be off in two completely weird outer worlds that are like orbiting each other, and you'll be like right there holding it in the center, so we both have a place to come back to and like find our little inner orbit again. It's so valuable.
You know, Mike and I, we spend so much time listening to that group back in the day, and that, and a lot of the Coltrane Quartet as well. So much of my early understanding of jazz was listening to bass players be trees with crazy drummers, you know, and Jimmy Garrison was another one, you know, that played with Coltrane's Quartet. Jimmy Garrison was another cat that was just an absolute master of finding how to take three other titans of music, Coltrane, McCoy Tyner on piano, rest in peace, and Elvin Jones on drums. Jimmy Garrett, and he had a completely different style of doing that than Ron did. Completely different. But, you know, those were probably my two big, and those are the two cats that I feel like I learned how to play with drummers in a jazz or an improvisational context. I learned doing that from listening to Jimmy Garrison and Ron Carter in the Coltrane Quartet and the Second Miles group, you know? Because at the end of the day, like, a lot of people, it's tough because, like, with really notey bass players, I know that there's some cats that, you know, you just got to have range. You just got to know, like, the circumstance. You have to know who you're playing with, you know? And so, like, that's, like, one thing people ask me all the time about playing with Mike. It's, like, it's sort of common sense. It's just a lot faster, you know? If he's chopping, stay in the middle. If he's staying in the middle, you got a little bit more room to breathe, and you can move around a little bit more. But if he's going in, you got to hold it there, you know? Instead of trying to fit a bass line in, try and play a bass line that what he's doing can fit into, you know? I think that's like something that a lot of people that I hear, a lot of bass players, that they tend to they tend to think of it as fitting into instead of enveloping, you know?
Yeah, well, it's kind of counterintuitive. You're thinking backwards.
Yeah.
Like, how could I play something that is going on right now would fit into if I were already playing it?
You know, Patitucci has a really good way of describing it. He calls it the pillow effect. You know? And it's real. And if you listen to, and people overlook him as like a pocket bass player, but Patitucci, like back in whenever he was like in the studio scene in LA, had real pocket, you know? So he really, he has a very good understanding of stuff like that. That's also why the Chick Corea Electric Band worked the way it did, is because he just knew how to just sit in it, you know, and let everybody else sit in it as well. Instead of just being the chops fiend that everybody knows him as and associates with him. But dude can play real bass.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be challenging. You get known for that thing that is more noticeable.
Right.
Whereas the thing that is unnoticeable, you know, at its surface level is actually the much more important thing.
Yeah. Well, I know I see that also with Mike all the time. I see so many people And you know, him being my best friend, I remember whenever I was at Berkeley, people would always ask me like, you know, how does he do this? The chops are crazy, this, that, and the other. It's kind of, and it kind of got to a point to where I would get annoyed because and some people would also, they'd be jealous or they'd be hating or whatever, like, oh, well, just play pocket. I'm like, look,
Mm-hmm.
you're choosing to just assume that the man doesn't have pocket because that's not what the rest of the world has decided they want to see. And Victor Wooten deals with the same thing. Victor Wooten, I remember talking to him about it. He said straight up, I put out my first record. I thought I made a good musical album with the bass,
Mm-hmm.
but all anybody wanted to talk about was the technique.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wanted to talk to me about the songs. Everybody wanted to talk about the technique. So he said he's actively scaled back the technical stuff in each album
Mm.
ever since then. That was 15 years ago, I believe.
Mm.
Somewhere between 15 to 20 years ago, he put that album out. But yeah, that seems to be kind of a theme, is if there's something that's really technically advanced, that tends to be the thing that the majority of people will focus on, which is unfortunate.
Well,
Because
the
anybody
majority of people in a certain scene,
True.
the majority
True.
of the world doesn't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the majority of the people who are musicians themselves and looking to be inspired will be inspired by something that is more in your face and noticeable.
Which is also, and it's unfortunate because anybody that has like heard Mike on a gig knows that his pocket is crazy.
Mhm. Well, I have a distinct memory of when we were playing overseas. I won't say where it was, but it was on one of our tours. And Mike had a bunch of other drummers sit in at like a little jam thing afterwards, and everybody had some chops and could like go
I remember
and, like,
this.
do
I remember this.
do their thing. And but then as soon as it came down to actually making the whole thing sound good, it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
You know, so I think a lot of people forget to work on that. You know, you have stories of Chris Dave. Chris Dave is one of the most technically, like, profound players of this generation, and you hear his stories about how he practiced, and he would just get high and play the same backbeat for 2 hours to just get it so perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's the thing that he at least says that he focused on. And I mean, you know, I take that same mentality in when it comes to piano. It's like rudiments and the basics are the things that, like, you can never get too good at them. And that goes back to Bill Evans. You know, he only practiced the most basic, simple stuff.
Right.
But then became, you know, because he was able to do that, he was able to use it in such a brilliantly musical way that it lasted through time.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's not to say that chops aren't fun. I love chops, obviously, given the tunes we're playing.
Yeah, as we all do.
But, you know, having an understanding of the layers of importance, the foundational element is also it's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, I used to have a teacher that would put this really well, Hal Kirk, who I think I've talked to you about.
Mm-hmm.
Best music teacher I've ever had. One thing he would always say is everything creates the need for its opposite in music. You know,
Interesting.
and you can find that
everything creates the need for its opposite.
Everything creates the need for its opposite. So that's been a huge influence on the way that I conceive like playing bass for folks as well. So that's also why, like, sometimes whenever I'm trying to think of the way I'm conceiving bass lines, like let's say we'll use maps, your Spirit Fingers tune maps.
Mm-hmm.
That like that's usually the beginning of a solo, breaks down a little bit. It's a little freer.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to keep that one pretty straight just because it gets free enough where Mike will be really floaty, and so I got to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
But even with that, like maybe I'll start like palm muting with the right hand to give it a little bit duller of a sound. I won't be doing full whole notes. I'll just keep it like a little light. Maybe I'll just do a quarter note, things like that. But by the time we get from there to the end of the solo, it's huge open notes that are filling up the whole room. And if I'm doing that the whole time, then it's just kind of boring.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing goes for improvising as well. So I think that I lost my train of thought. Yeah, but yeah,
And
everything
improvising the chops versus pocket, and
right.
like,
Yeah, yeah. 'Cause everything creates the need for its opposite, and I think that's Mike does that masterfully in his solos as well.
mhm,
Is that when he takes extended solos, there will be moments where what he's doing is not super choppy,
mhm,
but like it's conceptual, and then he might go from there to just the craziest, just straight line chops that you ever seen,
mhm.
back to something simpler, like
Well,
you
and
know.
the best, I want to also point out that the best artists are the ones who use those opposites as pieces of vocabulary, and then
Mhm.
all the gradients in between, and say something with them that relates to where everything relates to everything else, and you're using ideas that are consistent but expand and contract and morph, and you're taken on a journey. And that's the thing that, in the landscape of people who are able to do lots of chops and able to do like pocket, the use of those two elements as musical elements is the biggest challenge, and one of those things that when somebody can do that, it really puts them over the edge of being like someone that is at the very top.
Right. And the cats that really understand this concept, they're not thinking about it. It's just such an intrinsic nature of the way they play.
Mm-hmm.
Just because like these kinds of concepts, if you're thinking about them, they don't
Yeah.
happen.
Well, for pianists, I know we think about them in practice, but we don't think about them in performance.
And that's the ideal situation. I feel like for all musicians, especially improvising musicians, if you're thinking on the gig, you're done
Yeah.
already.
Miles said that.
You know?
He says if you're thinking about what's happening, then you've already missed it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the same guy, Hal Crook, he used to have a saying: "We get in his ensemble." And a study with him at Berkeley. His class was basically a class on how to play like the Second Miles Quintet.
Mm-hmm.
We'd get in there, and he'd always say there were like four keys. It was don't think, trust your ears, be a team, and I can't remember what the fourth one was. Something important, I'm sure.
I
But
love that, man.
but yeah, it's just the first thing is just don't think.
Oh.
Like just use your ears. Your ears will tell you what you need to do. And in so
Yeah.
many different ways. It's just analyzing the situation and
It's so
figuring
good.
out.
That's so good. Well, man, on that note, it's 9:05, so we actually did a full episode today. Which I'm honored to have you on for the final episode of my everyday trajectory. What
Happy
is-
to have been on.
What is 9 weeks times 9 times 7 is about 63?
63.
Man, I'm surprised I remembered that from grade school algebra. But yeah, so 60. That's crazy. 63 days. I've been doing this for 63 days now. That can't be That can't be right. Somebody told me it's been 9 weeks, but it doesn't feel like 63 days. If it has been, Jesus Christ, pat on the back. And tomorrow
Indeed.
will be my first day off in apparently maybe 63 days. So I'm gonna double check that.
And sleep in. That's a lot of days straight to be waking up at 6 a.m.
I know. Well, I'll still wake up at 6 a.m., but I will do some other stuff that I need to do.
Good call.
All right. Well, thank you, Max.
Well, thank you.
Have a great day. I will talk to you
too.
soon.
Sounds good.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
Oh, man. So, now you're back with just me. Hope you enjoyed that song just now. I don't know what that was. And on that note, thank you for joining me for apparently 63 days. That can't possibly be right, but I'm going to double check that. Of Mornings with Greg every morning, and tomorrow will be the first day off. Stay tuned on Tuesday for our bass-centric episode. Thanks, Plant Radio. We've got a few long-time listeners on here. Yeah, so Tuesday we will have Buster Williams, Mike League, Junius Paul, and Marlene Rosenberg, and I got to send out emails about that today. And a lot of other fun stuff coming up. A radio panel headed by Mark Reaney, and more. So anyway, love you guys very much. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for everybody who participated last night in the fundraiser for Tiny Records. That was amazing. And I will catch you guys in the interwebs.